fellow pilgrims. It's time for your favorite world-traveling, Bible-toting, soul-winning, Satan-hating, tried, tested, and triumphant host, Pastor A.J. Harold. Just a quick reminder to not be weary in well-doing, for as peculiar pilgrims, we're just watching, waiting, and working.
Saddle up
and let's ride.
As I try to record these weekly, I try to share with you certain topics that are on my heart. And today's topic is once again rather heavy on my heart. Now, from time to time, I will no doubt repeat myself. As you faithful peculiar pilgrims, you probably already know that. You probably already have heard me say things time and time again. But this thought that I'm going to share with you today really has been in my heart. It's been in my mind since way back on episode 11. The title of that episode was Babnab, Be a Blessing, Not a Burden. And the time of release was June 2nd, 2023. Now, today's episode is January 2nd, 2026. So I say often that these episodes are not sermons, but they're podcasts. They're podcast episodes. So I can't share all that's in my heart, but this topic, this episode is an outpouring from way back a few years ago. I was just going to speak from my heart with no script, but instead I thought it would be best to take the time to write it out and work through this methodically. Now, this is one of those gooey in the middle. If you've heard me say that before, this isn't completely ironed out and outlined and just perfectly and you could put a bow on it, but rather it's just a lot of thoughts and different really undeveloped thoughts that I've had in my heart and mind for a long time, actually. So today's episode, it comes from a life filled with both unmet expectations and real life personal experiences. So saddle up and let's ride. See, as a child, I thought that friends forever was a real thing. I thought BFFs, best friends forever, best friends for life was a real thing. But sadly, times change, people move on, circumstances are truly out of our control. And again, you may want to go back to Spotify or iTunes and re-listen to Babnab, that episode all the way back on episode number 11. You may want to go back to that for a full context, but I'm going to just dive right in where I'm at. Now, I enjoy real friendships. I have real friendships. So please don't listen to this thinking, well, man, that guy has no friends. That's not what I'm saying at all. I enjoy the real friendships that I have. But I've also experienced, some great things my whole life, and I was not prepared for two different obstacles with regards to friendships. One of the obstacles was distance. It's hard to spend quality time with your friends when they live hundreds or even thousands of miles away, or even crazier because of my military experience or because of the church with missionaries, they live in another country. Now, I'm not going to address this obstacle in this week's episode, the obstacle of distance, but rather I'm going to spend the time addressing the second obstacle and hopefully share with you some solutions to resolve that obstacle, because I believe some things you can change, some things you cannot change. And so we're going to address that at the end. But the second obstacle is rejection. Have you ever tried to befriend someone who is unresponsive, or they just don't reciprocate the energy that you give them? This has been very clear and evident in my own life over the last 13 years specifically. Now, I've reached out and I've tried to befriend certain men who seemingly really couldn't care any less. Now, I'm not saying these men are jerks or they're rude or they're horrible, man. That's not what I'm saying at all. Please don't add words to my words. Just hear me out. If these men were jerks or rude or horrible, man, why in the world would I try to befriend them in the first place? These men that I've tried to befriend over the last 13 years, and just for context, you might say, well, why 13 years? I've pastored now for 10. I've let it known publicly about 13 years ago that I would pastor. So I began to target certain men throughout the country that I could befriend. And I didn't know that some of them would just simply reject it. Not like they mentally went, "Ew, AJ, reject." No, not like that. But their lifestyle, their lives, their busyness, their schedule, things that they couldn't control, or maybe they didn't even know I was trying to be their friend. They just didn't do it. They didn't reply. They didn't reciprocate what I gave them. And again, they weren't jerks. They weren't rude. They weren't horrible men. They were good men. They were godly men. That's why I tried to connect with them. So it's no knock to them. It's just painting the picture so we can move forward. Now, the first part of Proverbs 18:24 says this: "A man that hath friends must show himself friendly." Now, I see good men, godly men that I would like to connect with in one way or another, even if distance is an issue, I want to connect with. And if it just doesn't seem to work out, there's no real connection, I have to ask myself, what in the world happened? What happened in the past was I would pursue and I would pursue and I would pursue and I would do whatever I could just to connect with them, thinking and believing that we'll eventually become friends, but to no avail. And this used to really weigh on me. It used to bother me. Man, I'm pursuing and I'm pursuing. What's going on? What's wrong with me? Well, coming to no avail with these attempted friendships began to trouble me a little bit. So now this is not a complaint, and I want to stress that. But I needed you to understand the backdrop of this week's episode so that you can see if what I'm saying resonates with you in your pilgrimage. So what do? We show ourselves friendly over and over and over again, but can't seem to make real connections and real friends. By the way, I have friends. I want to throw that in there again. Some of you are listening right now and you've been dear friends of mine. So I'm not addressing that. I'm not saying I have no friends. That's not what I'm saying at all. I have friends. But when I was in high school, my pastor said, if you have 5 friends in your life, you are a wealthy man. Now at the time, I felt like the entire room filled with my classmates, they were all my friends. What is he talking about? What is he even talking about? As Alden used to say. Now, I went to a small Christian school and I graduated with a graduating class of 6. So it was me, 4 guys, and 1 girl. I didn't graduate on the top of my class by any means, but I don't think I graduated on the bottom of my class either. Maybe. Anyway, 2 of those 5 other classmates of mine that I graduated with were even in my wedding. But for the life of me, I cannot connect with any of them. The 5 other students that I graduated high school with, I mean, the greatest memories of our lives up to that point, I shared with them, whether it be school or extracurricular things or church, whatever it is. Now, for the life of me, I can't seem to connect with any of them. I don't understand what's going on. So that began to teach me what I'm learning right now even is that my pastor, what he said was true. If you have 5 friends in your life, you are a wealthy man. Now, I'd love to do a recap on contacts, acquaintances, and true friends. I'd love to do that right now. But again, that podcast was episode 108. So if you go back to Spotify or iTunes or whatever and give that a listen, that may help you with contacts, acquaintances, and true friends. There is a difference. Now, bottom line is, what do we do? What do we do if we've tried to be friends to other people with no real results? Maybe we once used to be close friends, but now they don't really want anything to do with us. Or maybe we met someone at a church meeting or something else, and we desire to start a friendship with them, but to no real avail. What do we do? In my opinion, well, before we get into that, let me set the table just a little bit better to make sure we're on the same page. You look out and see a few people that you would like to go get to know them better and be their friend. You would like them to be your friend. I'm specifically talking about friendships, not relationships for marriage and such. I don't mean like that. But you look out and you see a few pilgrims that you try to get closer to form a bond and a friendship with, but nothing. It's a one-way street. It's all you to them, but nothing reciprocating back to you. So what should we do? This is what is helping me right now. As much as I have pursued a relationship with certain good men, yet to no avail, I step back for a moment, and I realize that rejection stinks. But here's what may help you, just like it's helping me. What is being done to you is the result of you chasing friendships. You're pursuing friendships with people that are not interested. Now, again, these aren't bad people. I'm not throwing dirt or shade or nothing like that. I'm just saying you're pursuing people that are not reciprocating it to you, and it can be discouraging. Now, on their part, it's not intentional. It's not malicious, but regardless, it's true. It's just not going to happen. If you're like me, you've spent way too much time chasing friendships. I want to encourage you to stop chasing friendships and start cherishing friends. Okay, you've tried and were rejected. You chased and to no avail. But think of it this way. Someone has chased you and maybe you unintentionally have done to them what has been done to you, and you don't even know it. I hope this is making sense. In Babnab, we said to be the answer to someone else's prayer. Maybe unintentionally, you are denying someone who is chasing your friendship because you're so focused on who you want to be friends with. How many of us are missing out on meaningful, real relationships, and we don't even know it? I do believe that I can bring value into the lives of others if they would only let me into their lives. But what about that individual or those individuals who may bring value into our lives if we would stop chasing and start cherishing? I look up to some man that will not let me in. I mean, across the country, there's some good, godly men that I look up to that I've tried to enter in, if you will, and be their friends, and they become my friends, etc. But who is doing that toward me? Who might be looking up to me? Who might be chasing after me? Who might be doing that to you? Now, I used to say, a man that hath friends must first show himself friendly. My daughter Symphony, a couple years ago, I guess, corrected me by letting me know that I misquote that verse all the time. After looking it up and verifying, I realized that I added the word first. I would try to be someone's friend first, and after being rejected, I didn't understand. I guess there's no hope. But the verse doesn't say first. It says a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. Maybe you and I don't have many friends. Maybe it's because we're ignoring and thus rejecting those who are showing themselves friendly to us. They are chasing us, and we, because we're chasing someone else, are rejecting them. It's something to think about, right? Pilgrims, are you chasing friendships? Sometimes our loneliness, perceived or real, whether it's real or perceived, it encourages us to chase after friends who we have no business chasing after in the first place. And again, it doesn't mean that they're evil or anything. I'm just saying, why are we spending so much time chasing after someone when we may be being chased ourselves? While we are chasing, we are neglecting the ones who are no doubt real friends that we already have in our lives as well. So it's not just someone else pursuing us, but those who already are our real friends. We may be on the hunt for real friends, but what we get in return may be actually fiends and not friends at all. You ever want to be someone's friend in your history and you get close and they let you in and come to find out they're no good for you? They're not friends, they're fiends. A fiend is defined this way: an enemy in the worst sense. There are things that I did in high school, in junior high, in college, in adulthood, etc., because I had the wrong people around me. I chose to be friends with fiends. They're an enemy in the worst sense. They're implacable. They're just malicious. They're a foe. They're like the devil. They're devilish. They're infernal. They're horrible. A fiend is not a good thing. And yet what happens is sometimes because we're lonely, we look at that group of people and we think if I were just their friends, things would go really well. So we begin to pursue that relationship, and it's not healthy. Now, don't think that God isn't able to keep you from entering into a harmful relationship. I've been reading in the book of Genesis, and Abraham, he lied a few times about Sarah, his wife. He said a couple different times in the book of Genesis that she, Sarah, was his sister. And one specific time, the king took her to become one of his wives. His name was Abimelech. And Abimelech was visited by God in a dream. And God told him that he was in trouble because he took Sarah. Now, Abimelech had, I don't know why I keep trying to say his name. I should just say the king, right? Abimelech had not come near her. He even told the Lord that he took her in the integrity of his heart and in the innocency of his hands. Abimelech said, God, I didn't know. I would have never done this. But he said it was his sister. She even said that Abraham was her brother. Now, the Lord knew that. And in Genesis 20, verse 6, the Bible says, And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. So God says, Abimelech, I interceded. I intervened. I interrupted your plans to protect her, to protect you, to protect Abraham. Listen, we may be pursuing someone or a group of people to make them our friends, and God is intervening, and he's trying to say, no, you don't want that. I know the thoughts I think towards you. I know the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and I'm ordering your steps, and they don't go that way. Pilgrims, maybe the Lord is protecting you by keeping you away from a relationship that would be unhealthy for you or for them. And maybe this week's episode is here to show you that others are trying to befriend you to no avail of their own. So may I encourage you to stop chasing friendships and start cherishing friends. For truly, if you have 5 friends in your life, you really are a wealthy man. So how do we cherish our friends? I want to shift the focus to 6 helps, 6 thoughts on cherishing the friends. Now, no longer are we pursuing, but we're going to stop. We're going to look at those around us that we consider friends, that we feel that reciprocation coming back to us. We are definitely friends. So how do we cherish our friends? And can I just say, I'm a pastor, so may I just quickly talk to pastors? It's very tempting for us to want to either be known or be known of those who are known. We love it when the big name Dr. Seuss preacher gets up there and says, and Brother Harold, like we were talking. And we love that. That's pride. Be careful of that. We so desperately want the approval of man that what happens is we are chasing that and not cherishing the men that are in our lives. So how do we cherish our friends? Number 1, I have 6 of these. Number 1, be all there when you are together. Put down the phone or devices, be respectful, and cherish the moments with them. And that's for all of us. I catch myself listening to someone talk while I'm now, there are times where I'll say, I'm not trying to be rude, but let me shoot this text really quick. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. I mean, we live in 2026. That's where we're at. But at the same time, there's no reason to just be doom scrolling while someone is trying to, listen, chase your friendship. They're already a friend. Cherish that. So be all there when you're together. Number 2, Schedule times of fellowship both with one another face to face and even through technology. Again, we didn't address the distance issue, but sending a text, FaceTiming, doing these things, that's a blessing. I even have prayer meetings on FaceTime with some of my friends. Use technology. There's nothing wrong with that. But if possible, schedule times of fellowship both with them face to face and even through technology. A few of my closest friends do not live in California, but my wife and I have made it a point to get to them or bring them here. If they're real friends, you do whatever it takes to spend quality time face to face with one another. Wanting to do something and actually doing something are not the same. You need to pray about it and you need to schedule it. So one day, no more of that. Pray about it, schedule it, see it through, and spend some time in fellowship face to face, all while being there, putting those devices down. Now, number 3, don't undervalue your friend or your friends. So how do we cherish our friends? Well, don't undervalue it. Our very second episode was entitled Iron Sharpeneth Iron. Many of you know that this is a theme of mine, but it didn't happen that way because of my own secret place or my own study. It happened because of my dear friend, Pastor Barry Quinn. Now, he's in heaven now, and I miss him dearly, but he exemplified Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. I looked up to Pastor Quinn. I don't feel like I helped him out in any way, but boy, oh boy, did he pour into my life. Again, like I said, he's in heaven now, but his impact is still going on in my life. Don't undervalue your friend and their impact on your life. That's how you cherish your friendships. Don't think, well, he's my friend, but I wish that guy over there were. Don't do that. Don't undervalue the friendships that you currently have in your life. That's how you cherish your friends. All right, now number 4. How do we cherish our friendships? Don't stop making attempts at connecting with others. Now, one way to cherish your current friendship is to introduce your friends with your other friends. Allow your circle of friendship to grow. My friends are individually awesome, but I believe they would benefit other friends. So share them with one another. Introduce them to others. Go to meetings. I think of church and church meetings at different conferences. Try to hook your friends up with one another. Iron sharpens iron. One way you cherish your friends is you share them. You say, hey, I got a friend over there. You got to get to know them. Man, we ought to schedule where you guys could have lunch together. I mean, you could really step out and say, you guys meet at the restaurant, I'll pay for it. I just want you guys to meet. Both of you guys are amazing, and I think you guys would appreciate each other's friendship. Now, it may not pan out because differences and different things, but don't stop making attempts at connecting one another's with one another's. Your friends. Allow your circle of influence to grow. Now, number 5, how do we cherish our friends? Well, for you married peculiar pilgrims, cherish your friendship with your spouse by staying away from the opposite sex. As a man, a husband, I have no business, and you don't have any business making close friends with other females. As a woman, as a wife, you ladies, you must guard against the advances and the flirting of other men. By the way, when your spouse loves on you, when they flirt with you, when they compliment you, don't shoot them down so quickly like it's not a big deal. Because sadly, if someone else, someone other than your spouse compliments you, what happens to you is you get all embarrassed and you get all nice and you say nice things. But when your own spouse does, you reject it. That's not cherishing your current friendship with your spouse. We should not cultivate relationships with the opposite sex at church, at work, or any other place. There should never be this thing the world promotes as my work husband or my work wife. That's wrong. That's evil. That's wicked. That's sin. That's not cherishing your friendship with your spouse. And you single pilgrims, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 1 and 2 says, "Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren, the elder women as mothers, the younger as sisters, with all purity." Every relationship in the church has to be foundationally upon purity. Men, we treat the ladies as mothers or as sisters. Ladies, as fathers or as brothers. That's what keeps the purity within the church. So single men and single women, the males and females in the church are to be treated with respect and purity like siblings, like family. Cherish those friendships in a God-honoring way. Now, obviously, God may have one of them to be your spouse, but don't be weird. Just let God join together who God wants to join together in His time and in His way. Now, lastly, number 6, be content. How do I cherish the friendships that I have? Be content. 1 Timothy 6:6 says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain." Contentment is defined as a resting or satisfaction of mind without disquiet. Again, Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man that hath friends must show himself friendly." And we've ignored this part of the verse this whole time. There is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Be content. It's sad that I needed this reminder myself, but we literally have Jesus, a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. As peculiar pilgrims, we literally have Jesus as our friend. Let's lean on Him all the more. Let's be content, but not complacent. Friends and friendships are a gift from Jesus, but don't be sad with the 5 or fewer that you have. Cherish them and never let up. Thank you for listening, and I want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends and family. We would not exist if it were not for pilgrims just like you. If you'd like to donate to help us with the cost of these productions,
Use Cash App at Peculiar Pilgrims.
and you won't regret it. Also, you can email us anytime with your compliments, complaints, critiques, and even criticism at peculiarpilgrimspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, fellow pilgrims, never let up.